Jamie. How's it going?
All right. How's it going for you?
It's going okay. All things considered. But you know what we want to talk about today is not okay, So that's been weighing heavily on my mind. And I'm sure it has been on yours as well.
Yeah, we're in the midst of, another sort of big crisis this spring in the U.S. And as we've watched the instances, the really vivid instances recently of police brutality and white supremacy, and the vital response to that, and it's important to remember that all that stuff we've seen these last few months are just the latest and most visible in a long line of hundreds of years of America's history of racist atrocities.
Exactly. This is, it's being filmed so we can see it, but it's been happening for, you're right, hundreds of years. Our country it was built on these racist ideals. And so much of our history and, much of the way our government was crafted is built upon racism.
Yep.
And we're seeing that really clearly right now, but I know it's been clear for a long time. It's just, this is when technology is, helpful in a way, because we can, because some people just need that visual, or the world needed that visual to take action, which is one thing we really want to touch upon on this episode, is the action required, the action that goes with the statements and all the words that everybody's saying. It's, well, what are you going to do about it? It's the action. How do we get to the next step? How do we actually make change?
And I think you're right. So. We've had these, images of exactly what has happened. We've watched a man die in custody. And, sadly, it has taken that to gain this tremendous, attention around the world. And, it's something that people of color have been trying to tell broader society for a very long time. So,
right.
And that's something I think, you and I are both white women, and we have participated in the culture of white supremacy, even largely unintentionally, but nonetheless, sure. That doesn't matter. And I know this is something I've really been working on for the last several years, and I've been learning from, the diverse groups of students I've had on courses. And I really want to acknowledge that I have to continue to engage in this work all the time, every day, and acknowledge my own personal biases, how I contribute to white supremacy, and that, I have a responsibility to really work to disrupt and change these systems that exist, that continue to suppress and dominate people who are not white.
Absolutely. And this is something that in the white community, as myself am a part of, and I agree with everything you just said, Jamie, because I also have, of course, I've participated. I've, unintentionally or perhaps intentional when I was younger and didn't know better. Or, there are probably countless things that I've said or done that were not, in the best, interest of others or you name it, but it's, growing up in a way that it is unintentional because it's just the way that, you're used to things. But, realizing that and feeling that, like it makes me feel like crap, but I need to feel bad because that's the problem, and it's not a personal, it is personal, but it's not like, the shame and the guilt, that's one thing, but it's the springing into action, committing to learning and listening and getting better, feeling uncomfortable, but then how can I be better? And it's, it's humbling to, admit to myself, wow, okay, I've been doing a lot of things wrong. What can I do better?
Well, and I think like we as white women, we just have to get over ourselves. Like, sure, it feels maybe it feels bad to admit that you've been racist, but whatever. Like, doesn't feel as bad as being the subject of racism. So we have
100%.
We can acknowledge, and there's there's great books and resources out there to support white people as they are dealing with the fragility of that. But we have to get over that. It's built into the structure of our entire culture in the United States. It's built in our national governing structure, all our institutions, our neighborhoods. It's in our Montessori organizations and training centers and schools and classrooms. And so we need to take, this recognition of our privilege and engage with these issues, and then look at, consistently look for ways that we can dismantle racism. Because for the children, we can all see in the potential in all children, and we want all children to have the opportunity to exercise that potential. And right now, we live in a society where children who are not white are not allowed by society to do that. And so, in our work as Montessorians, we have to work to change that. We just have to. And there's lots of things I think we can do personally. Everyone needs to do their own personal work of understanding what it means to participate in a racist culture and the impact that has. That's personal work for each individual to do. And there's great resources out there for that. But then there's also the work that we can do in our classrooms, in our schools, and within our organizations. And I think that's something that I'd like to talk about here, about what we can do. Everyone's got to do their personal work, but then what can you do in your spheres of influence, especially in classrooms? Because I see racism in classrooms on a regular basis.
Well, and it starts really young too. And I've been reading a lot about, because as an educator, I know how influential, the classroom, the way you conduct your class, being a teacher. I know how you are an influencer, 100%, and that means, teachers, Montessori teachers, you have a great opportunity right now to really take a look at your environment, take a look at, how are you teaching? Is your classroom equitable in every way? How are you handling these different aspects? It's, because it starts young, and, I've read it can start as young as 2 years old. I'm not an expert in all the science behind that. I'm really not sure, but I know that children are like, they're like sponges. So they're going to absorb, what is in front of them. So yeah, actions to start at the classroom level is a great place to start.
Right. Like, let's look at our prepared environments and what is present in our physical prepared environments. Do we have examples of art from a variety of different cultures? Do we have images of human beings of all different shades of skin color? The books on the shelf.
Yeah, I think literature is a huge, that's a really important one. Literature and, as simple as the illustrations in the books. I mean, that's a simple visual thing that you can enact and you can look at and you can make sure that it's representative of all races, equally.
Right.
So.
You want to be sure too that, as you're looking at your psychological environment. So, we've got a lot of control over the physical environment of the classroom, of the items we put in the classroom. And one last thing too, there might be materials from your training courses that you need to remove because they have imagery of, racist imagery, and that's fine. I mean, you need to do that until there's another source for that, you need to take those things out. So all of that is something we have control over in the physical environment. So think consciously about how you're making sure that all aspects of the physical environment are representative of a variety of cultures and approaches. But then think about the psychological environment, because when I talk about that on courses, I talk about how our job in building a psychological environment for children is to make sure that every child feels safe. And when we think about that in terms of race, we really need to be sure that every child feels safe being their authentic selves and exhibiting the culture that they live in. So that means their language, their clothing, their rituals, and everything from their culture. And it's easy to, I've seen that not allowed. That a child, a Black child, can't come and speak. That the child has to do code switching to come to class and can't speak the way that they would normally speak in a place where they feel completely comfortable. And these are things we need to wrestle with and consider. How are we impacting a child's, authentic expression of themselves when we forbid that kind of conversation, or we forbid we really have to wrestle and question ourselves in the classroom.
And I think all of these, this wrestling of these thoughts and these conversations and these choices, it needs to be ongoing and constant, because that's the only way to really be anti-racist, is that you're constantly challenging, like you're constantly aware, you're on the, you're thinking about it, you're fighting against it. It's not just I changed my classroom, I'm good. No, it's a constant aggressive thought process.
I mean, an entire culture isn't going to change overnight. It takes dedicated effort and engagement, and so we have to do that. I mean, we have to look at that when we look at our. I encourage all teachers to go through your lessons and the lessons you've given, your record keeping, and take a look and see are racialized students getting the same amount of lessons as white students? Are they getting the full complement of everything we have to offer, or are certain subject areas emphasized and not others? I think that's another action that Montessori guides need to take in their own self-reflection about how they may be participating in white supremacy in their classrooms just through a lack of consciousness in their lesson planning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's taking a look at yourself and exactly that self-reflection, and then acting on it. And I think another thing to keep in mind, moving on a little bit to, the school community you work with, don't be afraid to speak about this and speak out if you feel like, certain things are not being handled the way that you believe they should be. I think a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, I think, speaking out is really important right now. Do you feel like, you work in a diverse community? Do you feel like everyone, of course, is treated the same? I mean, as a staff member or teacher, like, do you feel that way? I think these are the conversations that schools need to be having right now.
Right, at the admissions and hiring level. Like, are we embodying the demographics of the community around us? Are we, or are we a little, white island within a broader community? I mean,
Right.
I think it's really important. And I think it's also important in terms of taking a look at your disciplinary practices within a school. And looking and evaluating. I mean, do that same sort of reflection on the, sort of interventions that have had to be done for children who are struggling to maintain cultural norms in the classroom. And I would say, first, take a look at those cultural norms of the classroom or the school and decide if they're racist.
Right.
Are we being thoughtless in our imposition of some of these expectations? Is the disciplinary action that we that results from some infraction, is it equitable? Or are we seeing that more children of color are getting, written up or whatever that in a school culture? And we need to step back and evaluate that and make sure that we are, again, not thoughtlessly, imposing, that sort of action on, like predominantly on our children of color, our racialized children. So I think those are some serious things that we can think about in our class, at our classroom level, about our own classroom practices, the way that we're helping every child feel that they can be truly themselves in their classroom, and how we respond to behavior in our classroom, and how we bring that, to a whole school culture level. I mean, again, I'm not offering a lot of answers. There's great resources out there for ideas and places to go in this work. But the questioning and the constant sort of critical engagement in this is essential. Like you were saying, this is lifelong work. And we have to just be consistently engaging.
Yeah. And the questioning. I mean, and Jamie, you and I have spoken about this. We do not have the answers, because this is, we are entering sort of new territory, unfortunately, that all these questions are really being aggressively asked. And so it's going to be a long process of questioning and, and again, getting over ourselves and doing the work that's important, because what's important is that every child feels exactly safe and like they are treated equally and fairly in your classroom, and that they have a place in the classroom as well. And that, it starts, so, education is so important for so many reasons, but this is one of the most important things, I think, because the way a child feels when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, those are lasting memories forever. And, especially if it's a negative memory, that is not going to go away. And so it is, as Montessori teachers or Montessorians in general, like it is our duty to serve children first and foremost. And so this questioning of this work, it really goes in line with what our job is. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's exactly what we should be doing.
Right. This is what we should be doing for all children all the time. But we have to be particularly conscious for racialized children that because our whole system is set up to not see that. And so we have to make ourselves see who they are, value who they are, and support that in the classroom and in our entire school.
Absolutely.
And so that's hard work. I mean, and it takes, it just takes a lot of persistence and engagement, but it is part of the work we're called to do as Montessorians anyway. Yeah. Because that's how we can truly serve each child and their self-construction.
That's right.
And that's our work. And then I think beyond our classroom and school levels, we need to also consider our professional associations within Montessori. So, are the organizations that you belong to actively fighting against racism? Right. And if you're not seeing that, then write to them, call them.
Yeah.
Right. Those that are, tell them the issues that you're seeing. That that's the work we need to do. And there's people in all organizations that could, really benefit from your support, but also perhaps from you revealing something they haven't considered. So think about that. Think about that as you think about ways to take action, even simply in the Montessori world, as well as beyond.
I mean, I think right now, silence is not an option. And also, I a lot of organizations that I belong to, whether Montessori or not, they have said a myriad of different things, some better than others. And it's really given me a lot of things to think about. What I think an organization should be saying, and the ones that I've chosen to continue to, connect myself with, and then it sort of made me take a second look at some other ones that I belong to, and I think that challenge, in my mind, I'm just like, it's a good thing to, like, I want to associate myself with the things that I believe in, and I'm trying to, learn and listen again, and shift a lot of my thinking, and I know these organizations are doing that as well. But it should be, it should be in line with what you're thinking and how you're feeling. And again, like, don't be afraid to reach out. I've been sending emails to representatives and senators and things like that. But, you can also send it to an organization. It's the same thing, right? It's hearing your voice. It's speaking out. It's that taking action piece that we're just sort of capitalizing on right now. And it can help, it can help you remember why we're doing this work, right? We're trying to shake the world up a little bit. That's what I think all the protests and everybody speaking out right now, I mean, their voices are being heard, and it's amazing. And I think that you have a voice as well, and you can use that voice at the class level in your school and also with these organizations. And now's the time. It really is.
Yeah, and it's going to be the time for ever in the future. I think two things you said there too, talking about listening and learning. So that again goes back to, we making sure, especially if you're a white person, that you are doing a lot of listening. Sometimes out of our sense of shame and guilt, we may, in our efforts to help, stop listening. And that's something we have to keep, we haven't experienced this. And, and we have to leave the space for those who have to tell us and help us have a better understanding and a better sense of where to go. So listening is important, and finding all those resources that are going to support you. I mean, they're all over the place right now. There's some great resources available on, numerous websites. So find one that's going to help you. The two number one books in the selling right now are White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist. And those are I've read them both. They're excellent resources. There's websites available. Montessori for Social Justice has some great links on their website to the work of Black Montessorians and other Montessorians of the global majority. So, seek out those resources that are going to help you be better at listening and understanding, and then helping you to determine the actions that you can take to continue this important fight against white supremacy and racism in our culture, in our classrooms, at every level.
Exactly. And Jamie and I will work on getting some links and resources for you guys that I can put on our Instagram and even perhaps our website. So you can, help you get get to those sites. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, you stumble over them. It's hardly, you know, lots of people have been posting them. I mean, they're everywhere now, which is fantastic.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
You just need to do that work and find those things. And then I think because it's because that's each person's individual work. And then we have to just really think how this impacts our Montessori work. So I hope
that's right.
I hope that everyone is okay and safe and wrestling with this and thinking about our responsibility in this work. And I feel like we can, you know, push for this change so that every child who's in our environments not only feels it within our environments, because, you know, that is a protected place in some ways, but also feels it in the broader culture when they leave our classrooms, that they, you know, we can work on it on both those levels, on our classroom level and then on the full, you know, societal level. We just have to do this work.
That's right. That's right. And again, it's not going to happen in a week, right? It's an ongoing process. And so keep having those conversations and thoughts and, you know, I feel like all of us are overwhelmed by the mountain of this work, and good, because it's a long list, right? But I think a lot of this is going to start with education and right where we are. And so, you know, if anything,
one step at a time,
right, with the child,
one step at a time. And,
that's right.
And I'm sure a lot of you have resources or thoughts. This is certainly not exhaustive on the work that needs to be done, what we've talked about today. But you know, share that with us or start a conversation with us on social media.
Yeah, we would love it.
Or do the work, because that's most important. And just and keep that going. It needs to be sustained. It needs to be a long effort. This isn't a sprint. You know, we're in a long-term marathon on this work, and we need to do it. So I just hope that all our listeners are well and thoughtful and able to consider ways that we do have an opportunity as educators to work to shift our culture away from a culture of white supremacy.
That's right. And as always, reach out to us if you have any questions or need any support with finding links or anything like that. You know, we are a community. We're a Montessori community, and we're all going to work together through this for a long time. And again, you know, this is a unique episode because we usually talk about, you know, other things, obviously, but we felt called to speak on it. And also, this is not the only time we're going to talk about this because, as we've said, this is ongoing work. This isn't just a one episode thing, right? So we're going to continue the conversation and the work with ourselves as well.
Absolutely. All right. Be well, everyone.